All right, welcome to the second call where we're going to be going over some content tips, and it's going to be structured similar to the previous call where I'll just go over some stuff that I believe will be helpful regarding content creation for like 10-20 minutes, and then we'll open up the room for questions relating to anything. So to dive straight into it, I get a lot of questions since I'm like running Modern Mastery as well. I would say 90% of the questions revolve around content creation and content ideation. So having good ideas and then writing those in a way that gets engagement. That's the 80-20 of content, is having good ideas and putting out content consistently over time that gets decent engagement and leads to growth of some form, because we're trying to balance what I called in digital economics the three pillars of social leverage. So it's growth, authenticity, authority, and that just comes through volume, through producing more content, trying not to stick within like one specific style of content, whether it be like one-liners, like quote like tweets, or the list tweets, or something else. That's having that variation and kind of getting into the flow and having like your own mental database of content styles that perform well, and then you can continue to just kind of branch off of those, continue testing, and do it for hopefully years and years and years until you decide to opt out however you plan to. I believe we talked about like getting out of a personal brand in the last call, but I have a few things to go over. So I'm going to share my screen and hopefully I can find the right one because I have too many tabs open. Oh, that is the wrong one. That's what we're going over. Okay. All right. So the first thing is kind of training wheels. So training wheels related to content itself. So if you've been through the like Creator Command Center, there's a part that has this master swipe file. I know for some reason it doesn't load on some people's screens when you actually duplicate the entire Creator Command Center. So there is a link in there that leads you to this page. And if you guys can't find this or don't have access to this, feel free to post in the Discord and I can just link directly to this. But something I recommend is going through this and seeing these, which I created this for myself a while ago. This was like 2 years ago when I was first creating content, and I just noted the tweets that did the best for me, and copy pasted them into here. And you can start to notice patterns, right? And kind of break down and reverse engineer what works or what worked for you, so you can continue to double down and kind of use these as training wheels. Now, of course, what I'm recommending here is that you use other people's content and structure of that content as training wheels for writing your own, right? Because another problem I see quite a bit when people just start out is they'll write something very good, but I look at it and it's not really structured in an engaging way or a way that catches attention. So when you first get onto this side of Twitter, how do I put it? I think the first thing that most people learn or catch on to is just the spacing of tweets, right? It's like there's line breaks everywhere, whether it be in the comments or putting bullet point lists or just spacing things out in general. That's like copywriting 101, is making your sentences readable, but that also doubles as like having an aesthetic looking tweet, something that just looks good. It's designed well. And when you're scrolling Twitter, and from a consumer perspective, if most of the people that you follow are either like your friends or even some other creators, most of what you're going to see on Twitter as a consumer is just like blocks of text, right? So having a bullet point list or just something that's well spaced out, like sentence to sentence, that's going to be a pattern interrupt for them, and it's going to make them stop. So that's like a esoteric way of catching engagement, is just having good spacing and formatting in your tweets themselves and trying to structure them in a way that gets the point across just that much better, like marginally better, but it just does well. And that kind of carries over into like your text messages. If anyone's noticed themselves like texting their friends differently or like spacing things out, it's just an interesting observation. So this is just one of my best tips, and we'll figure out how to like get content ideas to plug into these later. But I would highly recommend just going through this master swipe file, looking through the different ways you can kind of manipulate all of these, right? Because the Scamper technique, so substitute, combine, adapt, et cetera, you can take one tweet, and for substitute, as an example, I can just change the subject of this tweet, and then it becomes a completely different tweet with the same high engaging format. So you can drastically change your life in 3 to 6 months with 1 hour a day of pure focus. So how about you can drastically change your life in 3 to 6 months with something about habits, right? You could plug in like stacking the right habits, and I think that would perform pretty well. And even with this, if you're trying to create content around something else in specific, let's say you're trying to build authority in the skill set that you have or are building for yourself, then you can just replace the subject of most tweets with the topic that you're trying to build authority in there. So another thing with this is something I just highly recommend. So use these as training wheels, and you can look through all of these as well. But I would also, as you are on Twitter, swipe the tweets that you resonate with the most, or that you think are just like really good, or that you would want to emulate, right? And then you can come into this, since you would hopefully have it duplicated to your own, and you can start adding certain like areas where you would paste those tweets. You can add new categories right here and paste them into there. Or you can just completely redo it all and create your own swipe file that works the best for the content that you want to create yourself. Now, there's a ton of other ways to do this. One being Tweet Hunter, where you can just type in the name of a person that you want to emulate. And I think Hype Fury also has this if you use Hype Fury. But when you type in someone's handle, so in the Creator Command Center, we wrote down like the people we want to emulate, like our tribe of mentors. And you can just plug their names in here. You can look at their top tweets and use these as inspiration, either for topics or just the structure of the tweet itself. And so you'll see that this may be contradictory to what I just said, where all of these are spaced out, but you can still pay attention to the structure of the tweet and how it flows, right? And just as a whole, like, why is it so engaging? Because this, like, you could write a tweet that is similar, like it looks similar, it's just a block of text that has information in it, but why is it so impactful? Why did it get so much engagement? And how is the flow of that specific tweet? Like, what's causing that to make people engage, and how can you replicate it? So that comes with time and practice, but it's just something that you should do, is just deconstruct why things did well and try to think through that and replicate it for yourself. And then the last way to do this that I also like is with Twemex, this little Chrome extension that you can install on Twitter. We talked about this in the actual curriculum, but something funny is that Tweet Hunter today just acquired Twemex. So they're going to be doing some cool stuff, I hope, and it's going to make the content inspiration a bit better. But you could go to your own profile and look at your top tweets, or you can search by specific topics. So let's say I want to write about focus. I could go into focus, see what my top tweets were at the time. and then just get inspiration and different structures that I've already written it in to write a new tweet, right? Especially if these are old and a lot of my new audience hasn't seen it, then it makes sense to rewrite a lot of what I've already written. And so you can go to really anyone's account and do this and look up specific topics that you want to write about. So that's kind of like training wheels, like how to start getting your mind in the mode of writing well-structured, high engaging tweets. And then the next thing on top of that is just having a good topic to write about, right? Because some topics perform 10 times better than others, especially if they're highly relevant and relatable to people. So some of those being like productivity, habits, self-improvement in general. This is why I recommend in the domain of mastery, like having some form of developmental interest, is because it's almost applicable to anyone. And then those people, since they're self-improvers, which is a huge market, can become interested in the other things that you are either excited about or building authority in. So the two other interests where it's like one makes money, one excites you. And so to get high performing topic ideas, this is one way, is just by looking at your tribe of mentors top performing tweets with either Twimex or Tweet Hunter. But another way that I really like is with YouTube or Medium. So the best way I can explain the YouTube one is to just give my own example of what I'm doing, or what I did last week, actually. So if you read my newsletter where it's like how I remember everything I learn, what I did was just come to Ali Abdaal's videos, because he's a huge YouTuber. I'm trying to grow on YouTube. And so it only makes sense for me to emulate high performing topics, because if I clicking on his popular tab, so I see his most popular videos. If I look at these, I came through here and I saw how I remember everything I read. And so I haven't even watched the video, and I just saw this and it's like, I can write something about that. Like I can take this and write my own newsletter based on how I learn and how I remember what I read or learn or study or whatever. And then when I create a YouTube video about it and my title is going to be similar, when people watch this, I may be recommended to some of them, right? And overall, I just know that it's a high performing topic and that people want to hear more about that. So I took this, didn't even watch the video. I plugged it into the framework, the newsletter framework, or just the writing framework in digital economics, started fleshing it out, and then created my own newsletter around it. But then what you can do either from that newsletter or just by reading these like high performing topics, you can then take those and either plug them into a tweet format. So let's look at 21 life lessons for teenagers, and then go to the swipe file, and we could plug it into something like this, where it's like 7 life lessons for teenagers or something similar. And of course, you can use Scamper to kind of switch things around. So 21 life lessons for, let's substitute teenagers for 6-year-olds. I don't know, depending on who you want to talk to. And then you just write down some short lessons. And then depending on how that tweet does, if it does really well, then you can take that and repurpose it into a longer form newsletter. So it become like a fleshed out 7 life lessons for whatever, so on and so forth. And again, with the Scamper and just trying to think like horizontally and vertically, is if you're trying to build authority in one specific skill, let's say marketing, then instead of 21 life lessons, it could be 21 marketing lessons for business owners, right? So you're kind of just switching things out here and there based on what you want to talk about in order to maintain that balance of the growth, authenticity, authority, and just testing different things out, because tweets are kind of unlimited. I like to think of Twitter as not only a good platform for growth, but it is just, it's the only platform where it's like mass idea testing. Like I can write 10 tweets without much repercussion on my engagement or account. I can't do that on YouTube. I can't do that on Instagram. And I don't really think you could do that on LinkedIn either. It's like I could write 10 tweets, see which one does the best, take that, post that on Instagram, LinkedIn. So the best ones are going to those platforms. And then I just know over time, as I'm putting out more volume and paying attention to what does well, my tweets will continue to get better and better and better just by being aware of that and writing consistently. And then the last one is Medium. So there's ways to look at like the top performing posts on Medium, but I think you're pretty safe to just look at your front page. That's what I've done for a long time for idea generation, and it's worked really well for me. So when you sign up for Medium, it's like $5 to like have an unlimited subscription where you can read like a bunch of different articles, but I think it's well worth it. I like investing in things that help with my idea generation, like YouTube Premium. That is the best subscription I've ever bought, simply for the reason that I can turn my phone off and listen to YouTube videos, and like on walks, whatever. That's if I could invest in a few things, it'd be something like Shortform or Blinkist for like short summaries and big ideas. Medium, just so I have like good writing that I can continue to go through. And then YouTube Premium, just so I can turn my phone off and listen to stuff. But you can see here, when you sign up for Medium, you pick your interests, and then with time, depending on what you click on and what you read through, it shows up. It continues to show things that you're interested in and things that are high performing from people that have amassed a following from their content. So the people that are growing are usually the ones that are going to show up on your screen. And you can assume that if you're continuously using their content as inspiration, you're slowly going to grow too, if you have other areas of your brand in place, of course. But you can just see that like the idea generation here with Tim Denning in specific is insane. If you don't follow Tim Denning, he writes an insane amount. I don't know how he does it. He writes like 2 articles a day, 3 newsletters a week for different newsletters. He writes like 7 tweets a day. He's insane. Very, very prolific writer. So someone to reverse engineer a study, and then of course just taking certain topics or words, going to the swipe file, substituting, combining, whatever it may be, plugging them into a format at the start, and then slowly getting better and better just by the nature of how you develop skills over time. So that's all I really have to give on content, because as a beginner, that's what's going to lead to the most growth, and that's what's going to teach you the most regarding like what you should be focusing on with content creation. If I were to, okay, so one last thing that I've been like munching on for a long time, trying to like simplify my answer for this. I haven't been able to simplify it just yet, but I know this guy in Modern Mastery, he is new to this online space. He's been doing real estate for a long time. He works with home buyers. And to me, when trying to build an audience, he's putting posts and other things in the critiques where it's specifically, it's very niche and specific, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's targeting such a little, it's targeting people who are ready to buy a home right now on Twitter. And to me, that just, it doesn't seem like that's going to lead to very much growth or sales as a whole. And so my recommendation for that is, if you notice that where it's like, I don't think my content is going to resonate with anyone, or at least anyone that I can get directly in front of right now, then you kind of have to broaden it a bit. So rather than saying, I remember one of his posts was talking about like putting down an offer to buy a home. And it's like, here's 3 things to avoid, or here's 3 ways to save money before you even write the offer. So it's specific to the people that are looking to write an offer on a home. And so my recommendation was broaden it a bit and encompass the people that may potentially buy a home in the future, which is a much bigger market, while still maintaining that specificity of attracting someone that will either buy from you right now, will buy from you in the future, or can refer you to someone that is looking to buy a home, right? So that's kind of the game we're playing here, where you're trying to maintain the impact of your message and the specificity of your message to attract the right people, while at the same time making it, positioning it, and writing it in a way that attracts a broader amount of people. So I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to still continue to like articulate what that is, but it's just broadening and making your writing more relatable while slightly hitting on the topics or the ideas that will attract the right people. I'll try and look at so like just an example here is like when you're writing these tweets and when you're looking at these, you may think they're a bit broad in that they're not attracting like a specific type of person. But when I write this, use your mornings for focus, work, and routine, use your afternoon for pursuing curiosity and learning, use your evenings for relaxation and reset. Not only am I attracting a broader amount of people where it's just like, yeah, this just makes sense, I like this idea. I'm also attracting people. I'm also attracting the people that are close to expert status in performance, like in the performance niche. So those people are going to follow me, but also are the people that are interested in performance. And if I have a product that is like dedicated to helping performance coaches grow their online business, then I'm still attracting those people with this tweet, right? So it's still specific, but I'm attracting a broader audience, so I have more room to pivot in the future if I ever want to decrease my time spent on client work or just create an offer that is for a broader audience. So I'll leave it at that because I feel like me talking about that may confuse people more. In general, just keep writing content. Don't worry about how broad it is right now. But yes, so we will open up the floor. Or Joey, do you have anything to add on to what I just said pertaining to like idea generation, writing good content, etc.?
So I know that you've touched on this a lot, both on these calls and things that you've told other people, but a really powerful strategy that I learned from Dan is to think about the people that you like. So the creators, the authors, video creators, even musicians, like whoever it is, celebrities, like write them down, like write a few of their names down and then think about, why do I like them? What is it about what they do that resonates with me? Is it their brand? Is it the way they talk? Is it the way they position things? Is it the way they talk about something? So for me, for example, I really like Alex Becker. He's a guy that was into, I think, like ecom, and then got into like a personal development phase with his YouTube channel. And then he went down the crypto rabbit hole for some reason. But I love the way that he talks in his YouTube videos about self-development and entrepreneurship and stuff like that. So that's something that I've started trying to emulate in my own content because that resonates with me, and I'm able to execute on that better. When I start getting into that kind of a headspace, I can generate more ideas like that, right? So it's good for you to consciously think about like, okay, who is it that I like? Who do I listen to? What podcasts do I listen to? What videos do I watch? What newsletters do I read? And then think about why. Think about the actual things that those people are doing that resonate with you, and then try utilizing those elements yourself.
Nice. Yeah. And so one thing that you sparked there is like talking about the things that aid in your journey. Because I know this is another problem that a lot of people face is where like you feel like you have to talk about the thing that you're trying to build authority in, when the skills or interests that are kind of fueling the journey in itself to get there, whether it be self-improvement, constant learning, productivity, creativity, and I'm speaking from my own personal experience here, like those topics, they help with online business. They help with really anything I plan to sell because they help me get results in those things, right? So that's just one thing to keep in mind, is I wouldn't stray away from talking about the things you like to talk about simply because they aren't directly talking about the thing that's going to make you money, because they do indirectly make you money. So let's say you're let's say you're interested in the weirdest thing imaginable, like underwater basket weaving. And you're thinking like, okay, well, how can I talk about this to other people? It may not be that you have to talk about underwater basket weaving. It may be talking about the fact that you just like to have a hobby, so you can take a break away from work, and how that spills into the work itself. So it's things like that where you're thinking about the why behind certain things. And if your interests are so niche to the point where like you just don't think they'd resonate with anyone, then they might not. But the reason behind like why you are actually, or why you like being interested in those things and how they benefit your life, that's where more people are going to become interested, not necessarily in those interests, but in like the modality of those interests. So the interest being a hobby, or just something to take your mind off work, or something of that nature. So those are just different ways to think about it and kind of incorporate it, because you don't have to incorporate all of your interests, but there's definitely a purpose there. Like you can definitely diversify your content to the point of being a more interesting person. So you are, how do I put that? It's like, so you're just that much more unique than your competitor, because you're not solely talking about that one specific thing. So just food for thought there. And now we will get into the questions. So just to answer Jimmy from the chat, do you templatize tweets? So I don't templatize them for other people per se. I kind of just like note the templates that did well after I wrote them. So I write something in a way that I think gets the message across well. And then if that continues to, or if that did well, then it's like, I'll note it down and try to emulate that structure or template in future tweets, and then kind of verify whether or not it will continue to do well. And then if it does, that's usually when other people start writing it that way, because they'll like see it and continue on. But that's just the name of the game. It's like one of my videos on YouTube did really well just on the one-person business model. And it's really interesting to see. I've seen like 3 videos in like my recommended feed that within like days after me creating that video, and they're all the same. They say that like pretty much exact same title, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but the content that's actually in there matters quite a bit. All right, Todd, what's up, dude?
Hey, so just a comment on what you just said, and then a question after that. So the comment about kind of mixing interests. So as I don't know if you remember last time I talked about agile software development, which I'm in, and also have a background in improvisational theater. So for a while, because I was doing a lot of conference talks and events, I was the guy who brought improv theater and the concepts to agile software development space, which, I was the only guy who was doing that. So I became the improv and agile guy, right?
Yeah.
So even if you don't think your interests can overlap, there's definitely, overlapping concepts, mindsets and perspectives that you can bring, hey, like I'm a runner, how does running apply into running a business, right? You can make all of those things cross over. My question is around when you're getting started. So 2 kind of things happening at the same time. So one is, I get most of my engagement when I do go more specific into my current niche, which I'm trying to kind of branch out of and get broader. So there's always the temptation to do more of that because it gets more engagement, but I know I need to do more to get the broad. But also, how do you balance out doing like, like the liking of tweets of small follower accounts to get more of a following and responding to tweets versus creating new tweets, which kind of go into the void when you're getting started?
Okay, I'll need you to repeat the second part, but while it's fresh in my mind. So for the first part, depending on like your niche tweets, it may be broader than you think, right? Like, and the engagement may be a good sign. Like, I know just the development niche as a whole, like software development, web development, that's huge. Like, people have millions and millions of subscribers and followers in that space alone. So I wouldn't necessarily like pressure yourself to broaden it a bit, only if you want to, like only if you want to kind of break into those other areas and get more engagement on, let's say, as an example, like a self-improvement tweet, right? So if that's the case, then yeah, I'd recommend like slowly broadening it and branching out. But if the niche is like huge, then I wouldn't worry about it too much if those things are getting good engagement and resulting in growth. And then,
Cool.
so the second question I think I missed a part there.
Sure, yeah. So when kind of starting out, like one of the things that we've been doing, kind of like finding people who follow or engage with, people you kind of want to get the audience of, and going through and finding the people with low follower accounts and kind of liking their stuff or interacting with their stuff, and then also interacting, responding to larger people in our kind of tribe that we're building. How do you balance how much you're putting into that versus how much you're putting into the new tweets you're putting out, which when you're small are not getting much engagement because you're small. So you're trying to build by doing the other thing. Just kind of how do you work that balance early on?
Yeah. So it's exactly that. It's the balance, right? So I would personally, like, if I could systemize it, I would set like a baseline. So for me, like, I always recommend like 3 to 5 tweets a day. I'm on the lower end of 3, but as you're starting out, it may just be 1, right? Where you can like kind of force yourself or make it like a rule to write at least 1 tweet a day, and then have higher volume on the replies just for the sake of growth. And then as you gain that following, as you start getting more engagement, then it's like, yeah, I can cut back on this other stuff and maybe add 2 tweets a day and force yourself to do that. But there's the trap there where if you have the inspiration to write like 20 tweets, don't hold back, right? Just like let those rip. But at the same time, you can also double up on those. So there's a weird line here where when you're replying to anyone, the rules of attention and engagement still apply, right? So spacing out your tweets, having some form of a hook, and like leading into some form of a lesson. But you also have to be conscious that it's a reply, right? And that you're like, it can be like clear as day when someone's just like, I've had people write under my tweets where it's like, it has nothing to do with anything related to what I said. And then they have the top likes, and it's just really weird. Like, I don't think bad about them or anything, but it's just weird. And so it's like, have that self-awareness when you're doing it, but also just be conscious that like attention and well-structured tweet, while still staying on topic and adding value to the tweet itself, that will result in the most followers. But with that, then you can take that and just schedule it as a tweet for later, or at least keep that in mind where it's like, I may want to schedule this for later, and then you put it in there, you change a few words so it makes sense as a standalone tweet, and then see how that does. So there is that way of doubling up, because I know Joey can attest to this as well, is that you can get a ton of content ideas just by reading replies to a tweet, reading a tweet that would normally give you inspiration, and then like taking all of those. So taking the tweet itself and then the other replies that have been said, creating your own perspective from all of that, and then turning that into your own tweet. So kind of 2 birds, 1 stone.
Been pretty conscious lately of when I'm replying, seeing like, hey, yes, still replying to the content, but thinking, can I write this so it's almost like its own standalone tweet, even though it's a response to something else? And then if not, could I then make that another tweet that I could then pull out and, use that as inspiration for something else? Exactly. Yeah, that's definitely something I've been focusing on.
Cool.
Cool. Thank you.
No problem. All right. Oh, Josh, you have your hand up. So, okay. Let's go. Based. What's up?
Yeah. Is my voice audible properly?
Yep.
Cool. So like it's slightly like on the topic of you having those templates to write our tweets. So something like a problem which I have for over a year now, which is when I write without the templates, just in like a normal voice, I get a better response from the audience, but the overall engagement is down, right? And if I use the templates, the engagement is high in terms of likes and retweets, but the response is low, like in terms of the comments and in terms of the DMs. So how do you balance that?
That's an interesting one because I've experienced the same thing, and it's like I know some people notice, or I've seen a lot of people on Twitter say like, oh, when you just like the tweet you least expect to pop off is going to be the one that pops off, and so you can't control that. But that's just it. That's the balance, right? So maybe try this, because I don't think there's a set way of doing it, where write the tweet in the way you would with, let's say, the template or the structure, and then like rewrite it as if you were just like gonna write the other format of the tweet where you just write whatever you want, and then kind of try to bridge the gap between the two, where you're maintaining structure in a way that's high engaging, but then like the impact of what you would have said just stand alone, like how can you carry that over? So that's kind of the balance, is mixing the two and like having the template, but then making it your own by breaking the rules a little bit. So it's just something to test. But there may not be a set answer there, because the balance may very well be like have the balance of the templatized tweets where you're getting that engagement, but then also throw in the other tweets where you're getting more replies and other things.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. All right, Josh, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, Dan? So for me, I wrote a question, but it has like a bunch of typos in it, so don't read it in the chat. But I typed really fast. I was typing really fast. But what I was asking is like on, because from what I like a TikTok also, so it's like kind of difficult to like do both. Would you say like I can come up with like tweets, right, and just use that to like make the TikTok?
Hmm.
Or should I just use what's already working on TikTok and make tweets about that? I don't know, like, it
Yeah,
would work.
so I think it would depend. What I noticed when I was originally trying TikTok is that TikTok has like a growth meta, right? Like at the
Mhm.
time I was doing it, it's like certain styles of videos are doing really well with certain sounds, etc. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like the way I would think of it. Let's go here. I'll share my screen and see if I can find my TikTok. This one. Share. Okay, so look at this one. That's annoying. So this was taken from like one of my tweets, like a list tweet that I did, right? So it's like my rules for a productive day. List, 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 list. So it's kind of about like structuring the tweet in a way that does well on TikTok, if that makes sense, or like bridging the gap between the two, but that may take more time. It does take more time, because like if you're just going to copy paste the tweet or like have a screenshot of the tweet and add some sound to it, yeah, that'll do well to an extent. But then if you take the time to make that message fit in a format that will do well on TikTok, then it does that much better.
Okay.
Like, so does this example help that?
Yeah, I think it helps that for sure. I could like implement some posts like that for sure. Like, I normally do like, I mean, it's like slightly different, but it's like I could do something like that. I can see how that's productive. I like that approach too.
Okay. Yeah, because there's like multiple different ways. So like here's another one, new 1%. It's kind of the same thing, where like I took my list tweets and did this, and then like the tweets themselves do well also if you have a certain background behind it. Like I've noticed that a lot of people were doing this, so I tried this out. It clearly didn't really work, but then I added like some better backgrounds, added myself in the background, that did better. Tried this out, same thing, literally me just drinking out of a cup with the tweet there, and it did okay. So a lot of mine that did the best were like the list ones, just formatted in different ways. And then that was just taking too much time, so I started doing the clips, and you can see that like those just didn't get nearly the same amount of engagement. Then I tried doing like a different format, which just took even more time, but it got more engagement. So it's really about balancing like the message that you're putting across in either tweets or TikToks, and then structuring it a way that will do well on TikTok. So you could like do the TikTok first, just so that it gets that good engagement with the TikTok algorithm, and then take that message and somehow put it into a tweet that performs.
That makes sense. That
Okay.
makes sense. I like that approach, because I do like, I'm doing better on TikTok than Twitter. Like I'm new to Twitter, like completely. Like on TikTok I have followers. TikTok I got like Twitter I have like 70 followers. Like it's nobody.
Right.
So thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too, is like Twitter kind of requires that like growth strategy where like you have to put conscious effort into growth. And I'm sure you have to do that for TikTok too. But since the algorithm is so like sensitive on TikTok, you can kind of game it a bit more. When with Twitter, it's like you could write the best tweet imaginable. If you don't have a following and no one retweets it, it's not getting exposure. You know what I mean? So you have to like set aside the time to do that. But if TikTok's working, definitely don't like, I'm sure, you know, like double down on that, come to Twitter and focus on that when you have the time to actually put the effort into that. Because it's the same with Instagram, kind of. Instagram's like a mix of both. But everyone's trying to increase their algorithm to help new creators. I know YouTube is doing something right now where they said they're gonna like blow TikTok out of the water and like end them for good or something like that. So that's something to keep an eye on, is like cross posting to YouTube Shorts, if that's something you want to do. But yeah, just ideas.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
No problem. All right, Oscar, what's going on?
Hey, Dan, how's it going? Glad to know you're doing better with the migraines.
Thank you, man. Yeah, feeling good today. I'm gonna make the fucking most of it, dude. I'm gonna go on like 10 walks today instead of 5.
That's awesome. So yeah, I wanted to, I think my question is related to a little bit to the last one. I was actually going to ask, I don't know. I know it's still very early to know, but I got thinking after Elon was saying, that Twitter is on the brink of bankruptcy or whatnot, first question is, do you guys think Twitter will, even if it goes bankrupt, do you think it'll there's a risk that it might disappear? And thinking along those lines, I know that I think it's bachelor's, right, curriculum, you said that until you get to 50,000 followers, don't even try and start growing another social media, correct? So I was just thinking, what are your thoughts, and also Joey's thoughts along those lines, whether it'll be worth it to try and start, growing on another one at the same time, or to just keep going? Because I am trying to not worry about things I can't control, which of course you can't control what happens there, and trying to focus on things that I could. So I don't know what you guys think about that, and what you guys would do if you guys were starting like us.
Yeah. So for like context, in terms of like branching out to other platforms, the what I kind of mean there is what I mentioned in the last one. Like if you, for most platforms, it takes that like dedicated time and effort to actually grow on those platforms, right? Like you have to form a network, you have to, unless you have like some form of leverage there where it's like, if you meet someone that's not very big on Twitter, but they're huge on Instagram, and you can kind of exchange services there, then yeah, that gives you an in for growing much quicker on Instagram. Like Sahil Bloom, for example, like he's sent me some content to share to my stories simply because he hasn't like tried Instagram, but he's huge on Twitter. So now if I need anything from Sahil, I can just reach out to him and be like, hey, can you hit this thread? Hey, can you like when I write my book, he's like, yeah, we'll get you on the podcast, we'll help promote it, like all of this other stuff. So that's like what I mean there is like, if you have the resources to grow on another platform, then by all means do it. But if it's taking away from the growth that you're trying to sustain on another platform, then be careful there, because content repurposing, I feel like that takes a lot less time, because with Instagram, it's like you screenshot a tweet, you paste it, maybe you add a bit of design flair or something like that, but that can be systemized. So that's kind of the context with that. In terms of Twitter as a platform, I don't know, man. I think Joey and I have similar thoughts on this. I've talked with like Dakota about it. Like Dakota's entire business runs on like the hopes that Twitter will remain. I have personally high hopes for Twitter, where I think it's going to only get better in the sense of like allowing new creators to grow there, and it actually being recognized as a platform where there are creators. Because from the things that I've watched on YouTube, where people are kind of commentating on the state of Twitter, they're like, when a lot of them said the same thing, where they would comment on when Elon said they're going to introduce like a creator monetization program. Almost all of them were like, what creators? Like, what are you talking about? And so like a lot of people that aren't on Twitter are kind of out of touch with what Twitter is, right? So most of the opinions you'll hear are the ones where people just think Twitter is like a place where you go and like post memes or like weird thoughts, right? And so we're kind of in that space where it's like, we know what's going on, we know the potential of what's there, and I only think that's going to grow. But on the off chance that like Twitter does go bankrupt and it blows up as a platform in the bad way, I honestly don't know. I really don't know. Like me, Joey, I know a few other people in here are in the fortunate position where it's like, it won't hurt us too much. I really fucking hope it doesn't happen, but I really don't think it will. I think it's like, I don't really have like a positive or negative opinion about Elon himself, but what he said in one of his spaces, I'd recommend you all listen to that. I don't know where you'd find it. You'd probably scroll down in his feed, but he has a recording of the Twitter spaces he did where he talks about like his plans from like a position of him not trying to get engagement. And he said one thing that makes a lot of sense is he's great at growing and scaling technology companies, clearly, with Tesla. And so this being technology and him approaching it with the mindset of, we're going to throw shit at a wall and see what sticks. I think that's what most people should do. And I think that's what Twitter didn't do for a long time, is just testing features that would attract more people as a platform. And then the other thing is that the stupid things that he does do, like the $8 verification, like Twitter's at an all-time high user base simply because of everything that's starting there. And so more people, knowing us, we kind of got on Twitter. We slowly, I bet all of us, when we first got on Twitter, it's like, this is stupid. Like, why am I scrolling here? Like, I'm not even seeing anything I'm interested in. And you see one thing, then that leads to another. And eventually you're following a bunch of people. And now you're in this space where it's like, holy shit, Twitter is the best platform imaginable. And I think that will happen for more people as they get on there, and it will slowly like become more addictive to those people. So overall, I don't know. But personally, I think it is a good bet to put a lot of effort into Twitter, because now more than ever, I think is a time where like those massive spikes in growth for smaller creators is going to happen, like it did with TikTok in their early stages.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't see Twitter going anywhere. Twitter, I don't remember where I answered this question. It was somewhere in Discord yesterday, but someone was asking about that, and they're like, "Is it even worth growing on Twitter right now?" Twitter has its place. Like if you think about the content, or not content, but social media ecosystem, like Instagram is good where you go to share pictures and some videos. TikTok is where you go to share videos and kill your brain cells. Twitter is where you go to share like bite-sized commentary on stuff. Facebook is where you find out that your relatives are really racist. So all these different platforms have their purpose. And while there may be, other platforms out there that are trying to be the next whatever platform, there's nothing close. And I don't think there's anything that's really even on the horizon that can replace Twitter. Now, maybe because of what Elon's doing and future stuff that he may do, other people may smell blood in the water and put effort into replacing something. But even if that does happen, and this is an important point, the skills that you're growing right now are going to be beneficial for you for almost any platform you want to grow on right now. But it's also going to help you jump on a new platform and be one of the first. And then you can be one of the big accounts. Like how many of you would have loved to have been on Twitter 5-10 years ago? You'd have hundreds of thousands of followers at this point. Well, if Twitter does get replaced, people are going to go somewhere else. Social media as a whole is going to be part of our lives for decades, for better or worse. It's going to be a part of our lives. So there's always going to be social media platforms. So as long as you are consistently building the skills on the platforms that are at the top of the game right now, then you're going to be able to transfer those skills and take advantage of platforms in the future. But as far as Twitter itself, if you've been on Twitter for the past couple of years or like casually used it, you've seen that Twitter has like tried new things and then deleted most of them. Like last year, Twitter had fleeting tweets, it's a stupid name, but they basically copied Instagram stories. And people in our community, like people selling something, are pretty much the only people that made use of that. So they deleted it. I mentioned this last call, but Review, Twitter owns Review, the newsletter platform, and that's slated to be entirely eliminated in the next month or two. So Twitter is going to keep trying new things. They're going to roll it back. Twitter's still going strong despite the negative press that they have, but most news about anything is negative. So for right, as long as Dan is using Twitter, I would keep using Twitter.
Okay, awesome. I remember because I asked that question, right? I remember you mentioning it about Review, but I thought that they were just gonna stop integrating. I didn't know that they were gonna completely close it. So, damn.
I'll look again, but I remember seeing some kind of post about that was one of the things that Elon planned to do, was just entirely kill it off, because I'm pretty sure Twitter owns it.
Yes, they do. I'm exporting the few subscribers I have right now.
Yeah. So, but it's also, somebody could correct me on this, but it's also like, okay, if the integration and the bat like profile thing is gone, then what use is Review anymore? Like, why would I not just use ConvertKit, Beehive, Substack, one of the other more feature-rich existing things that are out there?
Yeah. And just a quick follow-up question on that. I remember when the whole, I don't know which, because he's always controversial. I don't know exactly which controversy with Joe Rogan. I remember that he jumped on another platform just in case he got, I think, banned from Twitter or something. Mm-hmm. And I think it was like a sort of like a Twitter clone. I think it was called Getter or something like that.
Right.
You heard of that?
Yeah.
Okay. And what do you think of that one? I mean, I haven't checked it. I just got remembered of that right now.
I mean, that and Parlor and things like that. I don't know if I would necessarily go to something that was created and or more importantly popularized due to political reasons, because that's kind of a flavor of the month thing. Like, I think Trump's coming back to Twitter, so Trump's going to focus on Twitter. He's not going to be on Truth Social anymore, because like, why would he be? So I don't think, I think the more important thing is building a newsletter, because ultimately you own your newsletter. As long as you're regularly backing it up and exporting, like, you know, weekly or monthly, exporting a CSV of your subscribers, you own your newsletter. And that can't be, you can't be like banned, or, I mean, you could be from one platform, but you just go to another. But the point is, if you want to branch out to another platform, go Twitter and then newsletter. And then you can get into the newsletter based system that Dan's been talking about recently.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much, Joey. Thank you so much, Dan.
So, Joe, you mentioned Trump coming back to Twitter. If he does, like, that's even more users, regardless of what we think of Twitter or not. Like, that's the way I think about it, is like, people are going to get on there for the entertainment reasons, or like the drama reasons, and then they're slowly going to be exposed to like the information that we talk about. Because I feel like that's how most social media platforms grow, is like, people would get onto YouTube for funny cat videos, and then they see a recommended video of like how I'm productive, something, and then they slowly fall into that rabbit hole, and then they're showed more content related to that, and it's just like the osmosis effect. So as long as you're consistently posting while it's still alive, should work out pretty well. All right, Based, did you have another question?
Yeah, I forgot to ask one before. And like before that, if my voice is a bit weird right now, it's because I have a sore throat. And so basically, like today I had an like proper book idea, which will obviously take time to put everything in execution. But like either in last call or in the recorded videos, you showed like the list of all of the chapters that you had for your focus book. And I was like wondering, like, how did you come up with like a proper outline for everything, like with all of those chapters and everything? So that might help me with like ideation of my own book.
Yeah. So I completely redid it recently. So it's a bit different, but the main thing that I've done, and this was even true for like my first ebook that I wrote, is I would look at the ones that I felt like inspired that the most. So for my most recent book, it's like those 7 books that I recommend, like that one YouTube video I had where it's like Power of Now, Flow, Age of Insecurity by Alan Watts, Art of Impossible. And then I kind of like looked at how those were outlined, right? And then I kind of, so you look at how those are outlined so you can get ideas for your chapters and like how things flow, but then also think like of point A where they are and point B where they want to be, or the end result of your book. So end result would be like last chapter summary. First chapter would be like illustrating their perspective, or like where they're at right now, where they could be, and then kind of hinting at like how they're going to get there, and then just fleshing out the chapters like one by one, what you think is necessary in no specific order at the start, like what they have to know in order to get to that point B. And you can pull from other books as inspiration. So like as an example, in The Art of Impossible, just because it's fresh in my mind, started rereading it today, he talks about the his 5 intrinsic drivers, right? So he outlines it where it's like you need motivation, learning, something else, and then flow. And so that's the way that he structures his book, is like step by step. Here's everything you need to know about motivation, which is the 5 intrinsic drivers of his. And then here's everything you need to know about learning. Here's everything you need to know about that third thing. And then here's everything you need to know about flow. And then those kind of flow well together. And so when you pull from those other books, it'll probably be like all mixed up at first, and you'll start writing them, but then you'll realize like, oh, okay, this chapter needs to come before, this chapter needs to come after. So personally, I don't have like a set way of doing it per se. It's more so pulling inspiration, everything that I think needs to go in there, starting to write it, and then just becoming aware, okay, this needs to come before this needs to go after. And then eventually it just starts to make more sense.
Yeah. So it's like the whole intelligent imitation thing, right?
Yeah,
Just seeing what.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I just had this idea today of a book like The Way of the Inferior Man, like opposite of the superior man. And
Oh,
I, like,
nice.
Thought, yeah, yeah. And I thought like maybe you had like you had all this chapters, and I thought maybe you would have a nice idea of what to do. So yeah, that helps.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right, Steven, how's it going?
Good, Dan. All right. So I was wondering if you can do a Twitter profile audit, and because I've I'll kind of share with you my past journey in like the last 2 weeks of going through the bachelor's curriculum. And before I talk, I actually want to see if it speaks to what my mission is, what my life's work is, my profile. So before I expand, I'll get your first take on it.
Cool. Do you want me to go over like the full thing? I can do it like on the share screen as well.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm fine with that.
Cool. Let's do that. All right. So just starting from top down, solid, easy, understanding, becoming, winning, dating tips for a tactical mind. I like that. I don't see anything wrong with the banner. Profile pic, solid. It seems kind of like Godfather-esque, which is a solid vibe to go for. Good. Examining and living through the steps and becoming a high value man in order to acquire and retain a high value woman. Former Tesla engineer. So this could be simplified a tad. I feel like it's a tad bit run on, but the message is there where it's become a high value man, acquire a high value woman. And so maybe that could be it, right? That could be it. And then examining and living through the steps could be broken down into like the main 3 things that you talk about in order to get there. So it could be the first thing could be become a high value man, acquire a high value woman, and then period 3 things that you talk about, or like become, acquire via XYZ. And then that hits all bases where it's like you have the desired outcome, you have what people are going to learn, and then you have that form of social proof where it's like former Tesla engineer to kind of show that you're up there in status. And then that helps with the perception of the profile. One thing I always recommend is having like a profile link where it even if it's just a newsletter, because it shows like, here's where you can go next. Here's where I'm giving more value. So whether that's like a lead magnet, a free guide, a newsletter, and just because it's on your profile doesn't mean like, oh, I have to consistently maintain this just now, especially if you don't have the time to do that. Don't worry about it. But it's just good to have a link there because it adds a tad more diversity. It's just like a marginal gain that you can add for a tad more followers. Like I personally, I just think it looks better, right? And so
yeah, I'm totally willing to do that because I was just waiting to finish my second newsletter, and I happened to do that today. I wrote it. I'm gonna edit it a little bit more. So it's the thing I told myself. I said I'll do it after my second, because then that way the ball's rolled.
cool. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, so and so following your strategies, right? Like figuring out who the influencers, who the figures are that have the 10K followers, and grabbing a subset of that audience, getting their attention. As I was doing research, I just found myself getting into the realm of like the kind of red pill space. And
Yeah.
I noticed that's what I noticed. I was like, okay, it allowed me to contrast something, like it allowed me to contrast something with with reference to something. And the way that I'm approaching, like the reason why I'm actually choosing to do this work is because I worked as an engineer, and I've just seen many examples of men who, you know, on paper have all the things that you would want of an above paying average job. You know, I mean, I think that's a big base, but they just struggle with female interaction, acquisition, and retention, right? And so that's who I'm speaking to, and it's really like the process where, you know, it's not to acquire as many females as possible. It's really to acquire the best one that you can, for, you know, to ideally evolve into a nuclear family. That's ultimately the end goal there. So kind of breaking things down into like acquisition, devotion, and sustenance, just throughout that whole process. And I'm also trying to share. So the former Tesla engineer, I was just trying to really like communicate, hey, listen, this is I'm an engineer. I understand what it's like to go through that, right? So I'm trying to share that I have relevance with my audience. And secondly, I'm actually going through that right now. So I'm in a relationship. So I'm actually also living through it. And I'm not just kind of like studying it from third person perspective.
Yeah.
So should I, you know, do what I think it's good to try to bring those out in some fashion, or I guess I'm asking, like, you know, if it's necessary, or I guess with that context, I'd like to just hear some feedback on how to approach that.
So what I would personally do, so for the first thing, I would highly recommend making friends with Jack Peach. Very cool dude. Knows what he's talking about. His funnel is pretty damn good. Just a good writer all around. Another person would be, and you could say, like, I told, like, we've talked before, you could just be like, hey, Dan told me to reach out to you. And then hopefully that would like open the opportunity to start learning from him. And then I forget her name. Yes. So, damn, she grew. Okay, so study her top content for like growth content, like what does really well. Because
was a former student of yours?
No, she's not mine. I know she definitely, like, I remember seeing her like 2 years ago. She definitely paid for like retweets on specific content from people that I knew. But her content was really good. Like when I was reading, I'm like, yeah, she knows what she's talking about. I'd actually learned from her. So just worth all around, like, seeing what she writes. But she's writing more one-liners now. She used to write a lot of this style, right? So similar to what I recommend in digital economics is usually the list tweets, the actionable advice, the beginner level threads are what's going to help with that initial growth the most. And then once you have that audience, like the one-liners and other things start to do a bit better. And just having a mix, like, yeah, she definitely has a mix of them throughout all of it. But those are two people that you could study and just pull inspiration from. And in terms of what you mentioned, I would recommend writing a thread on it, because that 3-step system per se of yours, the acquisition, something, sustenance.
Yeah. Devotion, sustenance. Yeah.
Yeah. So put a lot of effort into writing just one foundational thread
Mm.
and potentially getting more eyes on it. So I would DM Jack. I guarantee he'll probably respond and be fairly open to connection. Camilla may or may not, still worth shooting a DM and interacting with her. And then if it makes sense and if you want to, you may be able to reach straight out and just be like, hey, can I pay you for one retweet and see what she charges for that? And then when you write that initial thread, either send it to us in the Discord or something to get the hook like perfect. Because then if you can get more eyes on it and the hook is really good and it's like that unique system that just makes sense and puts across your vibe the most, as opposed to like a more red pill vibe,
Mhm.
then I think that's the best thing you can do. And then pinning that tweet so you have the high social proof there. Preferably it would get above 500 to 1,000 likes, help you grow a lot. And then that would be there for people that are interested from the start. And then you can continue to repurpose that forever. Really, you can write a bunch of tweets on it. You can make it like the core pillar. And then once you grow by like 3,000 to 5,000 followers, you could even rewrite it. Like if the thread did well, you can rewrite it, try to make it do better. And then you have an audience that will hopefully get it into more people's faces. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like, it's hard to list all of this in the bio, but just a consistent stream of tweets that like slowly indoctrinate people into that modality of thinking
Yeah.
is the move. And I mean, you could throw something in here, like at the very start, it could be like the like nuclear family enthusiast, or even the opposite, where it's like anti-red pill, something good, you know, where it like makes sense and kind of puts it across. It sparks that interest where it's like, okay, this is a bit different. I want to hear this guy's perspective. Then that would help. But I think like the main foundational thread as a pinned tweet would really help.
Yeah, I think that's really what I got from you, which is like be sharp in your bio because it's limited, but the pin tweet is really that opportunity to tell a full story and bang on kind of like an extension of the bio in the form of a thread.
Yeah, one thing that I'll mention as well is that, okay, so this was exactly a year ago, almost a year ago. So this post, I remember, like, to the best of my knowledge, that when I first pinned it and when I first wrote it, it topped out at maybe like 2,000 likes. So just over that year, people have come to this tweet and it's gotten up to like 7,800. And that's just from people like coming here, looking at it, potentially retweeting and getting a few more on it. But it's just grown over time because of that, because it's very foundational to what I believe. I need to come back and rewrite it personally because I can do it better. But that's just to show like that people will look at it, will read it, and that it does really help, especially if you have some kind of something at the bottom. Well, I have MMHQ or the planner, right? And then part 2, part 3. So it's like people can come into this, and the people that are really interested or really dedicated to learning more, they can go straight to the community or download the lead magnet, go into another thing. And so it's a tad more than just people seeing this for the people that are genuinely interested and will become potential customers.
Yeah. No, totally. I appreciate all the feedback.
Yeah. Cool. I'll also bring up one more thing. Just looking through it. So like the first few, I like these a lot, but at the start, it should be a bit more fleshed out. Like if you can work in a rotation of one step-by-step actionable tweet a day, So whether it be like text game or approaching, or even just like your 3 pillars of the acquisition, devotion, sustenance, with a like, try to simplify that as much as possible to the point where it relates. And then of course, look at Camilla's tweets, try to kind of get inspiration from them, see which ones resonate. Look at Jack's. A lot of his memes do well. So if you want to incorporate memes, then that could work too. But you could just use a bunch for inspiration. And yeah, that's what I would recommend, because the tweets are good, but since there isn't, like, if that came across my timeline and I were going through and then I look at the profile, it's not really like giving me anything. Where if I, like, let's say if this got retweeted, it showed up on my timeline, I see the profile picture, it's like, oh, this dude looks cool, click on this, but you have like 100,000 followers, then it's like, it's easier because that's already there and people will follow you just because the social proof is there. But at the beginning, it's kind of like, I have to prove myself, I have to know what I'm talking about in this dating world. And yeah, so actually another guy that you could look at for like tweets that do well but aren't necessarily like dating focused would be Save Your Sons. He's very good at the, like, these types of tweets. Like these are just always pop for him. So if you can like kind of get inspiration from these, I know he offers retweets as well. So as a whole, like between him and her, if you want to, it's always weird talking about this stuff, but if you want to like pay to get a post that you know will do well in front of other people's eyes, then these 2 people would probably be your best bet.
Okay. Yeah, so just get ferocious with the content, clean it up, just boom, but like, you know, take inspiration from these people, and then just, I think it's really just constantly putting yourself into that flow, even though, and then if you hit a break where like you're trying to find, you know, how to be original, like just pushing through that, right? And you provided the swipe file, you provide all the resources. So no, I appreciate the offering your set of eyes and so thoroughly. So that alone, I think, is gonna get me through that next hill.
Nice. Yeah. And we're always there in the Discord as well. So
Awesome.
we all know that. But cool. All right. Oscar, what's going on?
I had a couple of questions and I just forgot them. Give me 1 second.
Oh, good.
Okay, so the first one, I kind of did this. I tried doing this already on the last cohort with you guys, and I remember Joey saying, you know what, like most people are not gonna remember it, but the thread that I dropped yesterday actually, I mean, it's not like best thread, but it actually did way better than I thought it was gonna do, especially the first few hours. And it's basically, you know, like the 5 traits or 5 indicators that you might be in a toxic relationship. So I was thinking of doing a second one, you know, on another 5 of those. So I was just wondering, like, how much time would you space it out, or would you try and do it right away to just kind of get that momentum from the last one? I saw this girl, I don't know how many followers she had before, but I saw this girl grew by like 35,000 followers in like 4 days, because she made a thread. She's a dentist, but she made a thread on how to steal a boyfriend from someone else. And then she followed it up, and it just went viral. It just went bananas. And then she followed it up, I think, a day or 2 after, with how to avoid getting your boyfriend stolen. You know, so she played on the whole thing. And she got like 35,000 followers in like 4 or 5 days just from those 2 threads. So I was just wondering what you guys think about that on a follow-up thread on one that you just did?
Personally, what comes to mind, I would just do it immediately, but I would do the exact same hook. I would just go 5 ways or 5 ways to know that you're in a toxic relationship, parentheses, part 2, and then colon. And so not only are you using the same hook, but you're implying that you've already written another one. So more people are going to visit your profile, or they're going to read to the end, see that you linked part 1, retweet that as well, and then it will just compound growth. So simply adding the part 2 or 5 more ways to know that you're in a toxic relationship, that kind of implies that there's more, while still keeping the content like new and fresh.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking of doing that. Thank you for that. I didn't know what hook to use, and just probably linking the first one right on the second tweet. But you think it's better to do it right at the end?
Yeah, always do it at the end, so you don't lead people away from like your initial call to action, because you'll have, so it'll be like the hook, the body of the thread, the just CTA that you should have at the bottom every one, where it's like retweet the first tweet, and then under that you have, and here's part 2 for part 1 for those that are interested. And then you can go to part 1, because people are going to be retweeting that, go to the bottom of that and be like, here's a part 2. And then people that are, and then you're in this like cycle of hopefully those 2 are doing really well. If they continue to do well, just milk it, do part 3 until, who knows?
That's why I did only 5, because I know I have like 20.
Yeah, exactly.
So I did the top 5. You know, I actually, it's funny because this thread took me just like a couple hours. It was one of the fastest threads that I've written. And I did it because I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to do 5. I'm not going to go deeper into that, because I honestly didn't think it was going to do that well. But yeah, now that's what I'm thinking, just doing another 5 and 5 and see if I can get to part 3 or 4 or whatnot and just milk that.
Yeah.
Okay. And thanks. And the second question is for lead magnets, which I know it's on the masters, but for lead magnets, I know that we have I saw Joey's, like template for the lead magnet that he has. I was wondering, when you're doing a lead magnet, can I just, in order for me to put it out there as soon as possible, is that okay if you just do like a quick PDF, just no design, just everything written down? Or would you say, no, you do have to put a little bit of design because people will judge you on what I think I'm overthinking that, but yeah, just wondering about the lead magnet, how professional does it need to look, or can it just be like a quick 2-3 pages on Word and then that's it, PDF?
It can be a few quick words. I'm pretty sure you can't see my screen, but Jack Peach, I would download his PDF, both of you, Stephen as well, to see how he structured it, because his is really good. From what I saw, I forget why I downloaded it to recommend to someone, because I like Jack. I've talked to him a lot, but he did really well with like not only giving value, but leading into a call to action to book a call for potential coaching. So that's something, because his isn't well designed at all, but it's very valuable. So I wouldn't worry about that. Just look at his lead magnet, and that should get you in the mode of like, okay, yeah, I can get this out pretty damn quick.
Is that's on his profile?
Yeah. So if you go, I believe it's just the link in his bio. That's Tiny URL. Oh no, that's Calendly. Newsletter. Trying to find the direct link. Okay, yeah. So go to his website. So thinkandpeach.com. Click on the newsletter tab, and then it'll take you, and it should say the 3 steps, like subscribe and receive my free course. And then the second one was the one I was talking about, where it's a free guide to approaching women. And then, yeah, the third one's just 3 value packed emails a week. So pay attention to the second guide. Even the first one may be useful. to seeing how he structures that. But the lead magnet as a whole is very good in terms of value and then quick to sign up for potential coaching.
I'm not finding that.
Here, I'll share screen. So you go Jack Peach and then
Yeah.
Thinking Peach and then newsletter and then
Yeah.
here.
Oh, I didn't click
right
here.
there. Yeah, the hidden step.
I
don't know why
didn't. I thought that you did get like a pop-up as soon as you got there. I'm like, I'm not getting that. Might have a pop-up blocker, but okay.
Yeah. So sign up for this. Maybe unsubscribe immediately so he doesn't get excited that someone's like joining the newsletter. Maybe you'll find value from his emails. It's always worth like studying the funnel. If he asks how you found the email, don't tell him I sent you, and don't tell him that you're just swiping stuff. But yeah, that should help.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. So yeah, so just don't wait. Try and just bring value and don't even worry about the design, right?
Because you can
Awesome.
always add one later. And it's a personal brand. Like people don't care too much, to be quite honest. Like they just want what you say they're going to get. Like if you say they're going to get exactly how to do XYZ, then give them exactly how to do XYZ. And they should be happy.
Okay, cool. Thanks, man.
No problem. All right. Last one, and then we'll wrap things up. Todd.
Hey, I was just wondering if you could actually take a look at my profile as well.
Yes.
Let's pop that in the chat.
Boom. Benji, chill, bro. Go. Okay. Dog is handled. What am I doing? Share screen. Todd, share. All right. Profile pics solid. I like that you're looking to the side. That always works.
Yeah, actually reversed
just-
hearing you talk
Yeah.
about it.
Good. Yeah, that it's like the smallest little thing, but I saw that. I learned that when I was studying web design, where like if you have like a block of text and then you have an image and that image is a person, there's like a statistic. They did like some laser eye calculator to see where your eyes were going. And if the baby on the side here was looking at the text, more people would look at the text. If the baby was looking at the screen, then more people would look at the baby. And so you want people to see the actual content and guide them that way. So good choice. This is good. The header, like with the header, so just like a broad lesson is kind of like, if it's professional, it's good because like it can explain exactly what you do. Could have a quote. It could just be an image of the sand on a beach to give off the vibe that you're trying to achieve. And overall, yeah, looks good. Helping you do the things you've always wanted to do in life and business, leadership, agile, notes to myself, fear follower plus coach. What's fear follower?
So, I mentioned before that I had the improv and the agile. There's a third pillar that I also did, which was when I was an improviser, I found myself very scared to improvise, to step out there. And I had a goal that I wanted to do a one-person solo improvised show. It was going to be 45 minutes long. And I decided to actually make an entire event around it that I ran for multiple years called Follow Your Fear Day, which was helping other people do the things they've always wanted to do. And so what we do is we get like 10 people that all had things like, they wanted to start their own business or they wanted to travel the world, and I would help them do that. And they would do that and they would come and speak at the event. So this was kind of like an annual event for a few years that I organized. So there's a big aspect around that because, there's a whole system that I developed around how to actually help people do these things. So that's part of what I'm also trying to incorporate in what I'm doing.
Okay. I like it. I feel like it has to be fleshed out a tad bit more, or I mean, it can be there since it's such a small aspect of the bio. I think it's cool to have there, maybe like put it on people's radars. But like that was the first, I actually asked the question this time, but that's the first question that like I asked when I read it is like, what is that? Like, how does it apply? So that's just something to think about
Yeah, and it's
because
definitely something I'm still trying to figure out how to kind of meld
Yeah.
all these things into a brand, right? I'm still trying to figure out where that fits in. I know
exactly.
I'm definitely gonna be talking about it, but how to make it part of the thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, that could be fit into something right here as well. Hmm. So overall, like my brain automatically goes into like, how can this be better? When I think it's good all around right now, where it has helping you. So it implies that you're teaching them something. Things you've always wanted to do is good, but it could be a tad more specific, relating to the benefits that people will receive in their life and business. So the one thing that I discussed yesterday in the Discord with someone is they were trying to ideate like what their niche was in writing or how writing has helped them. And so it's helped them increase their opportunity, like how many opportunities they have access to, their mental clarity, and just their potential income. And so that was like their three things. And three, like the rule of threes is usually the best thing. So if you can think of three specific benefits that you can help people achieve through what you do, then that should feel a bit better and less like vague. Right.
Yeah, I think I struggle because like I'm still walking the line of like the B2B side of the business where I could
Mhm.
articulate the benefits on how when I go into an organization, how I can help them. But also on the personal side, like when I did the fear following thing is, the stuff I help people achieve there. And they're not the same thing. And it's like I'm torn on that. And that's why it ends up being vague where I'd like it to be specific. But
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out like how do I synthesize that into something that's applicable to both, right?
Mm.
Because if you're coming from a business aspect, yes, I can help you with these things. If you're coming from a personal aspect, yes, I can help you with these things.
Right. Yeah, that's something I'll munch on throughout the day as well. Because as of right now, I think it's fine. Like I'm just adding on like the
Well, no, because I feel the same way. Like when I look at it, I feel it's vague, and I'm trying to figure out how to, like, because if I put it all towards the business, then it's all going back towards business side. It's like, but I want to be able to do both, right?
yeah.
Actually, I want to spread out more on the individual side, and yet, obviously, most of my consulting business is still on the business side.
Yeah. That's interesting. I'll think about it as well.
Cool.
Because I'm bad at like coming up with them on the spot. But overall, it works for now and it will pull in followers. It's just a matter of like optimization.
Mhm.
Okay, so got that solid. Pin tweet, solid engagement. So social proof is showing. The ratio of the followers is also good. One thing you could do is get this down a tad bit. It's not like a huge nitpick, but like
Yeah, I
the
cleaned up
gap
a few
between
hundred,
that.
but I'm closing it up a bit more. And I had some that I followed in order to see if they would follow back, and so I'd probably go
Yeah.
through and unfollow some of those that didn't follow back.
Cool. All right. But yeah, overall, this is solid. See, let's say trainers. So it's solid. This one's solid as well. You've got the spacing, you're guiding them down the page. The lesson is good in there. It's broad enough to be spread to more people, I believe. So from what I'm seeing right here, I think everything's good. The main thing is just slowly stacking like the more eyeballs on the profile, like getting more eyes and traffic towards the things that will result in growth. So whether it be something like this, where it's a bit more specific, or something like this, like we'll just test this right now, like see how this does. But things like this, where it's broader and it has higher engagement potential, and trying to get those eyes there over time.
Yeah, because you
And,
can see
and
the
it's
dilemma, like the top one has huge engagement and then the next one has almost none, but one's very, very industry specific, right? And it's
yeah,
like, but I want to keep it. I don't want to always be doing the industry specific stuff.
right. No, I think it's good. I think it's just a matter of volume and getting more traffic. Cause tis, mister, it's been almost a week since the last tweet. So,
Yeah, I had a family member die last week, so I had
oh,
no.
okay. Yeah. Not tis then.
Yes.
Take that time.
So I used that time to actually go through all the material, but I didn't write much. So I actually went through the whole bachelor's while I was going through that. But starting today, I'm back to the writing. So you expect to
Okay.
see a lot more this week.
Cool. Yeah. So in that case, just keep going, honestly. Like I think it's just a matter of time, consistency, volume, and a bit more traffic on certain tweets. And so the whole like networking thing, engagement group, if you're into that, like really as much as you can, like get the most traffic you can. Like if you have the time to do replies, do it. If you have the time to add on an engagement group, do it. If you have the money to invest in paid retweets to just get momentum going, do it. Literally everything you can to just get the most traffic towards the ideas you're writing now, so that your ideas get better with time, and you just slowly get better and better, and then growth starts to compound and take over, and then you can slowly wean off of the other things that push that growth initially in the beginning.
Okay. And related to that, something that came up in the Discord as well, when we talk about, like paying for retweets or paying for engagement, I know Twitter doesn't like you doing it in the DMs. So when you DM somebody, what's the technique to kind of get them off of Twitter so you can ask them for the paid engagement?
Joe, see, I'm kind of I've had people reach out to me. I don't really do it anymore. But I've had people reach out to me where it's like, hey Dan, what's your Telegram? Like I have to talk to you about something. And then I see that and I'm like it just seems like a time sink. Like I don't want to.
Yeah, like I wouldn't do that as a first interaction with somebody, right?
Yeah.
DM them first so they know who I am, then say, I guess, hey,
yeah. So like personally, you could go the route of like introducing yourself and giving like a compliment and then asking. But most people, like if they sell retweets, they're with the times, and you could just be like, hey, do you offer paid promotions? And that's not explicitly stating paid retweets. That's not explicitly stating other things. And then if they say yes, then be like, what's your Telegram? Let's talk about it there. That's really how I would go about it, is just like be straight to the point and make sure they can see that in the first, especially if you're reaching out to someone that's very big, like make sure they can tell what you're asking within like the little amount of text that you can see on the screen. Because most people are going to prioritize the money and just like click on that and be like, okay, yeah, let's do business, and then go on with it. So that's what I'd recommend. The main thing though is just be careful with who you reach out to. I would usually reach out to the people that like you follow and that you like engaging with, and that have a similar audience. But even then, I wouldn't get too wrapped up in the audience itself. Like, yeah, don't pay like a gaming account to try to take their audience. But if it's like a self-improvement account or even like a niche like spirituality account, those cross over. Like those interests can cross over, and you can take some of their audience. So yeah.
Cool. One last thing, do you have any thoughts or opinions on, because I've been experimenting with it on LinkedIn, of the carousels versus doing a long post?
The carousels for, oh man, dude, System Sunday is a beast with this stuff. I'll try to find him. Oh, they don't have handles on. Yeah. So it depends on the carousel, but Ben, is he wrote great threads on Twitter. He blew up to 200K on Instagram just by copy pasting them. And now he's at 77K in a few weeks just by posting his carousels and getting people to comment on them. So if the carousels are good and already proven to work via like just being validated by your Twitter engagement or having a thread that really popped off and it can fit into a carousel, then it makes sense, right? And the reason he can do it so well is because he, I know he worked with Dakota to help him grow on Twitter specifically. So he got like insane engagement out of the gate. And then when he includes this on the different social platforms, it's just instant social proof. People see this. It doesn't matter what following he's at on LinkedIn itself. This is going to get high engagement simply because it already had high engagement, right? So people are like, oh, okay, what am I missing here? And then they go through it, they like it, they comment, they follow, boom.
Yeah, because I was taking some of my threads and I was modifying them, copying them into long text, and then I would do some where I would do the carousels. And it seems kind of, sometimes the one will take off, sometimes the other will take off. And I haven't noticed if there's like any LinkedIn push difference for carousels or user interaction difference for carousels versus long posts.
Yeah, for me, it was hit or miss too. I tried the carousels a few times. I know they worked really well at the beginning simply because like no one was doing it. It was a pattern interrupt and they're like, I'm going to try this out. But right now it's getting into the meta. So all in all, test out both, see if one does better than the other. Consistency trumps all.
Cool. Thanks a lot. And thank you for the feedback on the profile. And let me know if you come up with anything for the kind of merging of the two worlds.
Yeah, I'll definitely munch on that today.
Cool. Thank you.
No problem. All right. Last one for real this time. Rish, what's up? And did I say that right? Is it Rish or Rish?
Yeah, it's Rish. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to add a value add. I know Todd asked in the beginning, what ratio between tweets and replying to people. So yesterday I was going through the course and came across the forbidden strategy. But then what happened is I started going through and found Justin Scott's page and going through his page, and I did a half and half between people who would just follow me and are not creators, and also people who would follow me, people who I'm actually interested in. But what I found is I found a lot of people who I connected with their content, and I just went there. I liked their post. I liked their tweet, and I replied to their tweet. And that was one of the biggest growth days that I've had. I mean, I gained 20 followers yesterday. Got, 10 direct messages into my inbox, which has not happened before. And considering all the strategies that are out there, to gain 20 that way was really huge. And I just see that it was a lot easier to tweet to these people because it wasn't so high pressure. It was a lot of low pressure. I was able to share insights based on the comments that you mentioned, like not adding value to their tweets itself. And it was just a very good way so far for me to be able to not only reply, but also get into a flow, because most of my responses also turned into something that I copied and pasted to create add as a tweet in a later date, or to be able to just fine tune it to create a tweet at a later date. So all in all, it helped me get into flow. It helped me connect with people who I want to connect with, who are actually interested in the topics that I'm talking about. So it was easy to gain followers that way. And beyond that, it also helped me generate my own tweet topics and see the kind of people that are out there. So for me, that's been a huge win. I mean, if I can gain even 10 to 20 followers a day just from that strategy alone, it's going to be fire for, I was just doing the count, I can get to 2,000 followers in 200 days, which is good with me, and not counting in all the other strategies that are available. So just wanted to share that win and just show that by responding to people, like, it helped me get into a flow. And not only that, but it helped me create tweets because I'm responding from my own authenticity, like I'm talking to a friend, and it turns into content. And I didn't expect that to happen. So That's just something I wanted to add.
Nice. So what was the strategy? So you mentioned it was like part of the forbidden one. Are you like commenting instead of liking, or what was the
So
steps?
I went to go like people. Obviously, what I did is I go to their first tweet because a lot of those people are still either growing or don't have a lot of engagement. So when you like their latest tweet, they're going to notice that. And then on top of that, I add a comment that adds value to what they're doing. So for me, for instance, as a beginner, if somebody does that to me, I'm going to take notice 100%. There's nothing going on my page. So I found that it's really turned into a really good strategy. It's not to not only find other creators who are out there doing similar things, but just, yeah, so that's just kind of the strategy that I used. I actually had less people just do a follow for follow. I had all the people who I commented on not only engage with me, they appreciated me and thanked me for the follow. They commented back on what I said that it resonated with them and gave me a follow back. And so it's nice because I didn't end up going the route where I'm going to have to delete a lot of these followers. A lot of them are actually going to be people that I vibe with and can actually grow relationships with. And they'll actually want to retweet my content or engage with my content because we have a similar understanding.
Yeah. No, that's really smart. That's a good way to do it too. Because like when I think back about it, it's like the people that you're going to grow the most with are the ones that are very close to your level, right? And so it just makes a lot of sense, because I would even say now the 700 or so people that I'm following, I would say a lot of those are people that I was just talking to and growing with at the beginning. I'm sure a lot of them have like fallen off, but at the same time, a ton of them haven't. And that connection just snowballs over time. Like even if you're not talking to each other on a daily basis, like they know, like that connection and relationship is still there, where it's like they'll eventually pop in and they'll be like, hey man, saw you hit 2,000 followers. That's fucking sick. And then you guys talk for a bit, and then I don't know, it's just cool. Like I've noticed that a lot, and I've had trouble like explaining how that phenomenon works, where it's like you kind of just interact with a bunch of people, you all have a similar goal, you strategize to get there, and then you eventually get there, and like with time it just all starts to make sense.
Especially once you can have, they gain in followers and you can have them retweet as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just turned out to be a really cool strategy. I had something else I'm forgetting. Yeah, I guess that's about it.
Cool. Yeah, if it comes up, feel free to pop it in the Discord. Oscar, did you have another question, or was the hand just up?
No, I love the hand up.
Okay.
Thanks, man.
Cool. No problem. All right. So that is it. I will stop the recording.